All right, starting week 4. Kind of hard to believe that we're starting week 4, but nevertheless, that's where we're at. So, in reference to week 4, we're looking at psychoanalytical and developmental perspectives on gender. In order to be successful in this week, you need to work your way through the 3 lectures. Actually, it's 1 lecture broken into 3 parts as you're learning, and then you need to listen to the Friedman pieces on what is feminism, and of course, section 4 has a quiz. So kind of a light week in reference to overall assignments, but you deserve a light week every now and again. I'm sure next week will be a little bit more difficult. So, what are we getting into in this particular section? Well, psychological theories of gender differences stem from assumptions about the differences between the sexes. We've been talking about these differences in the beginning of the class. However, instead of relying on assumptions about biology, psychological theories focus on the connection between sex at birth and the socialization that happens because of that sex in infancy and onward. So now we're starting to move away from the specifically biological arguments into this social construction. This brings us to the work of Sigmund Freud, who is probably the best known psychologist on gender difference. He believed differences between men and women were based on childhood experiences. Children, to Freud, go through stages of gender development which impact both the structure of the psyche and the world around them. So we're really starting to see the beginnings of an idea of structure and agency. Through these stages, 4 elements work together to create an identity: the id, the ego, the superego, and the external world. Freud argued that during the genital stage, boys experience the Oedipal complex and girls experience penis envy. And he posited that not only is gender not biological, but also that sexual orientation and gender are linked, making homosexuality a result of failed gender identity development. Freud's ideas set the stage for many psychological theories and perspectives about gender, including the development of the MF tests, the male-female tests that rely on attitudes, traits, and behaviors to determine successful gender acquisition. As you see, we're starting to put good and bad. We're starting to value sexual identity here. Some types of sexual identity are bad. Some types of sexual identity are good or socially acceptable. There are also theories of cognitive development that present gender as being socially learned by children based on experiences and symbols, in which gender is determined by past knowledge and present situations. Of course, feminists have consistently challenged Freud's ideas, including taking issue with psychoanalysis and developmental psychology, arguing that his theories position women as perpetually inferior to men. Some argued men had womb envy, not women had penis envy, which necessitates a need to control those who give birth. Gilligan, in line with this perspective, critiqued the claim that girls are stuck on the 3rd stage of cognitive and moral development. Instead, she argued that a different level of development existed for women, an ethic of care, which was based ultimately on intimacy. Other feminists in turn challenged this perspective, as Gilligan's theories were used to justify essentialist ideas about women. Of course, more recently, developmental psychologists have identified that there are more differences within a gender category than across. We find the same kind of perspective used with race. There's more differences found within a racial category than there are between the categories themselves. Only 4 areas have significant differences. Girls have higher verbal skills. Boys have higher visual and spatial abilities. Boys do better in math, and boys are more aggressive. Many developmental theorists, or sexual theorists as they like to go by today, connect external behaviors to the male-female scale, attempting to explain antisocial behaviors as gender-inappropriate behaviors. This field leads to a litany of theoretical ideas, including Parsons' ideas and discussions of structure and binary roles for men and women. This idea was reproduced in the Bem Sexual Inventory, or the BSRI, in which Bem argued for the existence of androgynous individuals who tend to do better in society. Plecht shifted the discussion to roles men are forced to pursue. Although these theories acknowledge the relational context of gender development, they still fail to address issues of power and the social contexts in which gender and gender inequality exist. The idea of power and males controlling the dialogue and the ability to socially construct gender in reference to the male perspective really serves as the foundation for feminism, especially within its critique of science as a male-dominated knowledge production enterprise that could use some females constructing reality in a different way, which is what we see with Gilligan and her challenge to the predominantly male created perspectives of gender and gender identity. So yeah, work your way through the material. That's a basic idea of where the material will be taking you this particular section. So if you have any questions, as always, drop me a line, and I'll do my best to get back as quick as possible. Thanks, and I'll talk to you soon.